So nice to meet you all. Hi, my name is Pam. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like this is a full circle moment for me to be in Oakland County, sharing with you the journey that the Lord has brought me through. I don't know how I'm going to hold it together, but I'm going to. I promise you. Okay, so when I went to North Farmington, I dated this boy in high school. His name was Brad, and he went to St. Mary's. He was also a Catholic boy, and we had determined that we were going to wait until we were married to be intimate, until one night our senior year, he kind of started to pull away from me. He had got into his college of choice and was getting ready to be a dentist, and I was afraid to lose him. So one night I thought, gosh, maybe if we're intimate, this will be the thing that binds us. We're going to get married anyways. Let's just do it. And I got pregnant that day. And how do you get pregnant your first time having sex, right? Whoops. God has a sense of humor with me that's not very funny sometimes. But when I talked to Brad about the worst part was when we were in bed that night, he broke up with me after, and I was just devastated. I felt like I was just a whore. Like I just made this huge mistake. I knew we had talked about waiting till we were married, and I was a little manipulative in making the choice to be intimate with him. And then weeks later, it got even worse when I had to go to him and tell him that I was pregnant. And when I told him I was pregnant, he had already, I don't know how boys know these things, but he was like, listen, you need to go to a doctor, but you need to not go somewhere that says options, choices, or care center in the name. If you go to one of those places, they are going to first call your parents because you're a minor. At the time, you had to be 18 in Michigan to have an abortion, and I was 17 years old. He said, then they're going to make you drop out of high school because you can't be in high school pregnant. And then those pregnancy centers exist to sell your baby to families that can't have kids. I was like, no way they sell babies. And he's like, well, you don't make any money, but those places make like 10 grand from the families that are adopting these babies. So I looked in the yellow pages, because this was 1991, and the only place that didn't have that name, one of those names, was an abortion clinic, and it was on Orchard Lake Road. The full circle moment is it was in Oakland County that I made the choice to have my abortion. And I didn't have the benefit of talking to a wonderful, life-affirming OBGYN. I had the benefit of talking to an abortionist who was very happy to help me hide my secret from my parents. When I met with him just to talk about what an abortion even is, he was like, listen, those places are terrible. They would have ruined your life. All of those things would have happened to you. He said, but I'll tell you what, can you get an ID of somebody that says you're 18? And dumb me, listening to this medical professional, was like, wow, he is so nice. What a great man to be helping me out in my time of trouble. He is saving me, right? Fast forward a little bit, I'm laying on the table. And it was not until the second that I heard that baby come out of me, because I had a surgical abortion, that I knew what happened. I didn't identify for 1 second as being pregnant. I didn't identify with this was a baby that was growing inside of me. It was only a problem that I needed to solve, until I heard that sound in the cannula and the baby was no longer in me. My body knew that something really, really wrong just happened. One thing I don't know if you know about women when they're pregnant is that everything about us changes. Our cornea thickness changes, our heart rate changes. I no longer was getting nutrients because my baby was getting fed before I was getting fed. Like, that's a huge, huge deal, right? And then all of a sudden, gone. it did something inside of me that I don't know how to express other than to just tell you that. I don't know. And it affected me for a very long time. At first I shoved it down and moved on with life, right? But then you look at babies, you look at things. You go to a store and there's a baby section and it all becomes real, right? I feel like I could talk to you guys about this all day, so I'm going to skip around to different pieces because I think there are very important pieces in my journey that I think can help a lot. But before I do, I also want to talk a little bit about my faith, because I told you, I was in Catholic school. Brad was in Catholic school. I loved the Lord with everything I knew how to. So how did I make that decision, right? How is that not a consideration? The problem is, it very much was part of my decision-making process, right? For a girl who doesn't have any faith in God, she has no religious experience. There's no condemnation for her to choose to have an abortion. And there was a ton for me, because not only was I ruining like my walk and being like this good girl, right? Dating this boy that was at a private school that was going somewhere, right? I was worried about my parents' walk, having this girl who did this sinful thing, and now they have to help me raise this child. Or Brad not being able to go to school to be a dentist, or what his family was going to experience, having this son who knocked this girl up in high school, right? There was a lot of stigma for me. And so I made the decision very consciously at 17 years old. I thought it would be so much easier to go to God in a quiet place with the reality and sin of an abortion than it would be to walk out an unplanned pregnancy in my church. And that really burdened me for a long time. It started to convict me. My dad passed away when I was about 30 years old. And the second I found out that he was gone, the first thought in my head was, shoot, he's gonna get to heaven and meet that baby. And I never told him about it, right? I'm sure my dad was thrilled. I don't know. I have no idea. But that was like, I instantly was a 17-year-old girl at 30, right? And horrified that my dad, who I idolized and loved so much, that he was gonna see my dark secret in that moment, right? Fast forward 10 years later, my mom is now terminally ill, and she has cancer, and she is afraid of dying. And we had a bad relationship. She was a mean mom, right? Hard woman. And probably why I didn't go to her, right? But I thought, you know what? There's got to be some healing in our relationship, right? I really wanted things to be good with us. So one day I was with her, and I decided I'm going to give her some hope for what's waiting for her in heaven. And I'm going to tell her about this baby. And I'm going to apologize for robbing her of the opportunity to be a grandma to that baby. So I was visiting her, and I told her, and I really, in my mind, this was going to be this beautiful bonding moment. And my mom puts her hand up like this, and she says, "Do you not think I was on the phone listening to you plan your abortion?" She's like, "Honey, I watched you for months crying." And she's like, "Did you ever come to me? Did you ever come to me and talk to me and ask me how to get through this? No, you thought you were a big girl and can handle it, so I let you." It's awful, right? Now, the good God piece in this story, because there's God pieces in all of this, is that I went home immediately to my children, who were teenagers, and I said, "Listen, guys, you're going to go through things. You're going to go through hard things in your life, and I want to be your person. If you go through things without an adult, you're going to make mistakes, and I have more wisdom than you do, and my initial reaction might not always be what you're hoping for, but I promise you I will always come around, right? I will always back you. I will always fight harder for you than anybody ever could, right?" And I told them, I didn't think my mom was safe, and this is what happened. And I made a choice, and I got pregnant, and I had an abortion. And my daughter was 13 years old at the time, and her face drops. And she said, Mom, I have told you my whole life. She had 2 older brothers at the time. She said, I've told you my whole life that I wanted a big sister. Why didn't you tell me that I had a big sister, but you killed her? It's the reality, right? I did. She does have a big sister in heaven, and she'll get to be reunited with her one day. But she has to wait a long time to get to meet her. And of course, my daughter is lovely, and it came out of her mouth, and as soon as she said it, she tried pulling it out of the air to take it back. And she just hugged me, and she said, Mom, I love you so much. I'm so sorry that you didn't have you as a mom. I promise you, I am always going to come to you with all of my junk. And she has, unfortunately. Many times I'm like, I don't want to hear it, right? But it really laid a good foundation for my kids being truthful and honest and open to me in those experiences. I'm going to fast forward to another step. I said that she now has another older brother. We adopted 2 kids. They were 15 and 11 at the time. We adopted them. When the 11-year-old was in high school, we went to a summer camp for him. It was at Indiana Wesleyan University. There were 5,000 kids, high school kids, for this church camp, like a Bible-based church camp. It was incredible. And I got asked to be there as a volunteer. And God had been pecking at me to start, he said, women are choosing to have an abortion because you don't share your story. Nobody knows what you suffer with on the other side of having an abortion. I gotta tell you one story. I'm gonna back up just a little, because my son was with me when I told Emma about my abortion. And my son said, you know what, Mom, you have always honored the memory of that child. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, what do you say to me every time you tell me you love me? I say, JJ, you're my favorite son I ever gave birth to. He said, what do you say to Tyler? I have a stepson. He said, and I always said to him, Tyler, you are my favorite son that I never gave birth to. And Emma's my only daughter, and he says, and what do you say to Emma when you tell her that you love her? And Emma starts crying, and she said, Emma, you're my favorite daughter that I ever gave birth to. And he said, see, every time you told Emma that you loved her, you were honoring the memory of that baby that's not here. And I thought that was really beautiful. So I had to get back to that. So cool. He's an incredible young man. Yes. Okay, so I'm at this summer camp. Sorry, squirrel moment. I'm good at those. I'm at summer camp, and I'm there as a chaperone. I'm listening to these messages. They're wonderful. On the way there, the Lord had convicted me that women were choosing abortion because I was not telling them the pain that you have to live with for the rest of your life for making that decision. So I talked to the high school pastor on the way, and I said, listen, I need you to know, you might not want me to serve anymore, but when I was young, I had an abortion, and I would love to talk to a young girl or talk with you about what that situation was like, or give you some advice to help a girl that's in an unplanned pregnancy or making decisions that might lead her to one. I said, I have no idea but I feel like God is asking me to share it with you, right? That was in the car on the way there. The first night of this series of messages that these kids listen to, there's a pastor, his name is Louis Giglio. Have any of you heard of him? He's phenomenal. Okay, he is why I'm here right now. But he was talking to these kids, and he said to them, he's like, listen, guys, Satan is going to take you, and he is going to take and put his thumb down on you and hold you down and convict you of your biggest sin in your life. And he is going to make you feel that you are unfit for ministry. You are unfit to have healthy relationships. You are unfit to be close to the Lord because of this thing right here, right? And he's like, I'm here to tell you that is not the God we serve. He said, the God we serve wants you to buck that off of you. And he wants you to soar and see that biggest sin in your life as your ministry. I was like, whoa. I kind of don't want that to be my ministry, right? Can I invent iPhone? I would rather have that, right? Let me tell people about that story, right? So after it was over, we had taken 100 girls, just of the girls. We took so many kids to this camp. It was awesome. And we had like a one-on-one time after where all of the adults from our church were talking with the kids and following up and recapping what we got out of the lesson. And I shared my story with those girls and the moms, which was really scary. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I needed to get it out. And I was following the Lord in obedience, right? After I was done, I called my husband. I was like, you are not going to believe it. This just happened, and it was so cool. Oh, my gosh. And he says, oh, my gosh, Pam, can you imagine if one girl in that group chooses life or helps somebody else choose life or forgives herself sooner than you forgave yourself? That will be a miracle. That would be God redeeming your story, right? And it was in that moment that I made this commitment that anytime I had an opportunity to talk with somebody and share what I've been through, I was going to do that, right? And God's funny because he let me live in that silence of my abortion for about 25 years, right? But once I shared that, man, he put me right to work. He did not waste any time. I was working in the jewelry industry. I worked for Kay Jewelers. I was the manager at 12 Oaks Mall. I worked at the Jared on Hull Road. Then I left and went for a marketing company and was helping all the independent jewelry stores. I loved my job. It was so fun, so fancy, right? Well, in the morning on Monday, after I got home from camp, I opened up my email, and there was a job I got an email about a job working in pro-life, helping pregnancy centers buy mobile vans to go to where women are, to go to abortion clinics, to go to rural areas so they can meet them right where they are. And I was like, oh, I was not going to go into a pregnancy center, but I would have gone onto one of those vans. That was my opportunity to have a life-affirming conversation. And the cry of my heart for that, all of those 25 years was, Lord, why did you not drop one of those women or one of those men in my life so that I could have heard that I already was a mom? I just had a parenting decision to make, right? If I had known, these are all the resources available to you. This is what it looks like to do an adoption and place your baby with another family. To hear your parents are going to freak out. They didn't know you had sex with Brad, right? They thought you were going to wait, but now they're going to be grandparents. You're about to give them the greatest love of their life. I remember when I started having kids, my dad would say, man, I wish I knew how great grandkids were. I would have skipped you guys and went right to them, right? Yeah, I wish, right? Yeah. So, yeah. The hard thing is that I know statistically, when women choose abortion, about 50% of them identify as being a believer, right? So how are we missing the boat as believers or as the church body where we who value life and know life happens at conception, how are our numbers inside the church not any better outside of the church, right? And I really think that it's that stigma piece that is so hard, that when we're doing something wrong or something sinful, something that is opposite of God's teaching, we almost feel like the last place we want to go for help is the church. So one of the things that I've been able to accomplish since being at Save the Storks is we created a program called Start Course. And Start Course is a free resource that all of you can look at. It's really easy to get to. It's just startcourse.org. And Start Course is designed for the church, for any lay person, to how do you be a warm, welcome place for somebody who's going through something like an unplanned pregnancy so that she will come to you for help instead of running to the arms of Planned Parenthood because she thinks that they are not going to judge her, right? The church has a very bad reputation of being a judgy place, even if it's just our own concern of what other people are going to think, right? So that's my gift to you guys. If any of you would like to watch that, it's amazing. It's just short little clips of like maybe 10 minutes, some are just 3 minutes, but it adds up to about 2 hours. But it was designed because there are people like me in the church making decisions to have abortions. It's designed because Joseph, the man who MCs it through the whole thing, he was a music pastor, and he and his wife had a couple of friends over for dinner, and one of the friends said, "Hey, I'm pregnant. I'm thinking about having an abortion." And he was like, "My gosh, she just said she's going to have an abortion." He had no idea what to say to her. So he was like, "I'm going to invite her back next week, and I'm going to find out where we can go, how I can help her, whatever, because I don't want her to have an abortion." So he invited her over the next week, and the next week, she's like, "Don't worry about that. I already had the abortion," right? And I know none of us want to be that person, right? We don't want to miss the ball and miss those moments where we have that opportunity that God puts before us, right? I want you to be prepared when that happens. So I would encourage you to use that resource. Share it with your church. You can do it as a Bible study. It's really, really well done and well thought out. It's so well thought out that the American Association of Christian Counselors made along with Save the Storks, a 2.0. And Start Course 2.0 is really designed for people that are working in pro-life, understanding the psychology behind how does a girl like me who knows it's life still make a decision for an abortion, and what kind of things can you say, what kind of things are hurtful to say. So they're really amazing resources. So there you go. So one of the, in committing to sharing my story, I've had some really cool opportunities. Several years ago, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to share in front of 4,000 women my abortion story. And I was very intimidated to do that. And God was like pecking on my heart that a lot of times when you hear the story of a woman that's had an abortion, the man is made to be the monster of the story. And I didn't want to do that if Brad wasn't the monster in my story. So I looked him up. We hadn't talked since, I think we talked once after we had our abortion. So I Googled him, found a phone number, texted the phone number, asked him if he wanted to talk, told him I was working at Save the Storks in this pro-life ministry, and he called me immediately. And we talked for 2 hours, which was really incredible. And when I talked with him, the first thing he said is, before we get anywhere, he's like, "I want to apologize to you, and I want to see, he's like, "I totally understand if you can't forgive me." He's like, "But is there any way you could forgive me for breaking up with you in bed?" He said, I know, it's so funny, right? Yeah. But it bothered me, it bothered me for a long, long time. He said, "I took a gift from you that was not meant for me. That's why I broke up with you. I'm so sorry. I know how important that was to you. I'm sorry to you, and I'm sorry to your husband." Isn't that beautiful? But I lived in conviction for so long because I thought that was not the reason that he ended things with me, right? But he said to me, he talked about the morning, the day that we went for our abortion. He told me, I remember almost nothing about the day. I remember laying on the table. He sat next to me in 91. I guess you could have your boyfriend with you when you had an abortion. You can't anymore. But he took me to get my nails done in the morning. How goofy is that? He said, "I wanted you to feel good about yourself. I didn't know what to do, so I took you to get your nails done. We went and had lunch, and then we went and had an abortion." He said, "But God gave me a scar that day, and I still have that scar, and it has been a lifelong reminder. I always hold it. I always, feel it when I'm going through hard things, and I believe that the Lord gave me that as a reminder to never get that far from Him." I was like, "What are you talking about? How could you have gotten a scar from that day?" And he said, "Well, do you remember I was sitting there with you?" I said, "Yes." He said, you were holding my hand. And he's like, you were holding my hand so tightly. You were weeping so hard. He said, I don't know how the doctor just gave you your abortion because you were bawling. And he said, when you let go of my hand after the doctor left, one of your fingernails broke off, and I have a crescent-shaped scar in the center of my hand from your fingernail. Still, over 30 years later. How sad is that? And how good is God that he's used that as a bar for him, right? But the thing that I learned is that this isn't a woman's issue. This is a family issue. Men struggle. I shared my story once in a cab with a man. I said, I'm going to tell everybody. I was going to a pregnancy center conference. He asked me where I'm going. I said a pregnancy center conference. And he's like, that's interesting. What do you do for them? And I said, well, I had an abortion as a teenager, and I work really hard to help every woman know every option she has so that she can choose life for her baby. I believe if every woman knows the reality of abortion, that's going to be the last thing that she's going to choose to do. And he said, wow. He's like, my first love and I loved her so much, and we got pregnant before we were married. So we made a decision to have an abortion so that we could do it right. And he said, and soon after that abortion, we broke up. There was so much pain, we could not stay together. And he said, and then he started crying, and he said, about 3 years after her abortion, she commits suicide. And he was crying. He's like, I have never loved again after her. She was the love of my life. I've never had a family. I've never had kids. I can never forgive myself for what I've done. And I know that statistically, a fourth of you in this room have walked through an abortion. 27 years is the average that it takes for us to get to a place where we're ready to seek forgiveness of the Lord. And he was past that. I was very stereotypically at like 25 years, right? But here's what I want the fourth of you to know and the rest of you to know, so when you're talking with somebody, you can help them through this. The first time you confess your sin before the Lord, he forgives you. It doesn't even see it anymore. So why did I have to confess it 12,064 times to him to even think that he would forgive me, right? And then I knew once I got saved and was actively serving the Lord, I knew the Lord forgave me, but I didn't forgive me, right? I was so full of shame and condemnation that I didn't want anybody to know. I thought if they knew at my church, they were going to kick me out, right? And that is just absolutely not the truth, right? I had a big moment when I realized that if God, the creator of heaven and earth, can look at me and see me as pure and innocent and completely forgive me for that, I better not think that I'm bigger than God, and I better forgive myself too, right? And then only a year, maybe 2 years ago, I realized, and I want you all to realize this too, not just in sin of abortion, but in anything that whatever that thing is that Satan is holding you down on. God knows the beginning and end of time. So that means when he made me, he knew that that baby would never live this side of heaven. He knew that my kids would live without that sibling, that my parents would have to live without that grandchild, and he made me anyway. And he loves me so much, right? He loves that baby that's in heaven. How lucky is she? She never even has to feel pain. Whew, that's pretty cool, right? She gets to play with Jesus every day. That's freeing. That is so freeing. And it just motivates me even more to share my story, to talk through the hard stuff, to tell you. I asked the last banquet I spoke at, I asked the room. I'll ask you guys too. How many times has anybody shared their journey with you about making a choice to have an abortion? I bet you it's not many, right? I'm happy and proud to share it because I know that the Lord created me because I can articulate the pain that I have to walk through, right? Now I have to tell you the really cool part. So my daughter, the 13-year-old that got mad at me for her not having a big sister. She still lives in Michigan. How fun is that? She was living in Arkansas when I made the decision to move to Florida. She was a mess. She was a mess. She got into drugs. She was doing Xanax all the time. She was messy. And then she got cleaned up and she said, you know what? I need to go back to Michigan. She went to school in Port Huron. That's where she felt her home was. So she went back. She lives in Kimball now and is doing really well. She's a manager at Old Navy. She's got this cute as a button apartment and this boyfriend that loves her so much. In January, she started saying, you know what, I'm 27. I don't know if I can get pregnant. I've had these weird periods. So I'm going to go to the doctor and see, like before we make a decision to get married, he needs to know if I can give him kids or not, right? So she did. Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Wednesday I came here. She picked me up at the airport and she's pregnant. Now, so exciting. I'm so excited. It's a little backwards because they're not married, but they're in love. They're going to get married. And I'm not even concerned. Like, my parents would have probably been the same way I am. Like, whoops, but I'm going to be a grandma. I'm so excited. She's going to be at the banquet tonight. So hope some of you are coming back. You'll get to meet her, which I'm super excited about. But I was so excited to come here because I was thinking this is like this immense full circle moment for me in my life. But not only is it a full circle moment because I'm in the same county where I had my abortion, but my daughter's pregnant at the same time I chose to have an abortion. She is 100% all in choosing life. And I shared with Lee and his staff about her pregnancy, and she's going on Tuesday. She's going to start going there for her prenatal care. So exciting. She's going to get to take advantage of all of their parenting support. And she's a young, struggling woman. She needs all of the benefits that they have to offer to her. And they were extremely overjoyed at the opportunity. And I'm just so blessed because she's going to get every affirming conversation, every tool to be a better mom than me because of the Pregnancy Resource Center here. And that is incredible. So, yay! I did some digging because I always wonder. You know, I lived in Arkansas. The 2 kids that I adopted were kids from Arkansas. And in the state of Arkansas, there are 3,000 abortions annually. It seems like a huge number, right? 3,000. That's like a whole entire, that's schools. I don't even know what's in 3,000, but a lot. And Dr. Starks shared earlier that in Michigan, there are 30,000 abortions that happen annually. That just drops my jaw, right? But then I looked, because Oakland County is important to all of us, right? 3,415 abortions. That's students missing in classrooms, families with holes in their hearts that's going to take them up to 27 years to heal from. So that's a lot of hurting people. And Crossroads is working very hard to help in all of those areas, to help women, first, to not get pregnant until she's ready. Like, that's going to be the number one thing to help less abortions happen, right? If we can help women not get pregnant in the first place, right? Help her make good decisions with her body, to understand about good, healthy relationships, to understand about how to get pregnant and how to not get pregnant, right? About having healthy relationships and waiting for marriage. Those are all so important, and they're acutely focused on helping families, women and men, to understand that. So yeah, I could share all day long. The last thing that I want to talk about is the men that are in this room. I had the wonkiest head when I first started working with pregnancy resource centers. We had a couple of centers that had directors. Now we have many. I want to say probably 20, 30% of the pregnancy centers that we work with have men that are overseeing the organization or working in the organization. And at first I was like, what does he do when the patients are around? What is so strange? I thought, I had that mindset of, what is a man doing in this world? This is a women's place. And that is, I think, a lie of the enemy. I think all of you men that are here are incredible for being here, first of all. All of the men that are volunteering, incredible. The number one thing, if you could put one thing in a woman's life that could help her to choose life, it is a supportive man, right? Whether it is her partner or her father or a mentor of some sort. Men are important. I used to see male drivers on our mobile clinics, and I'd be like, oh, he better go away when the patient's there, sit in the car or something. And I'm like, now I've changed my mind. I'm like, no, put your hand on her shoulder, encourage her, show her she's gonna be okay. We need you men so much in this movement. So I thank you so much all for being here, right? I also want to just celebrate one moment of how incredible this ministry is. The fact that they have a doctor on staff and a PA on staff and are serving women throughout their pregnancy is something that I want to say maybe 10% of medical pregnancy centers are doing. I work actively in my ministry to help pregnancy centers grow into what they are. So I think you need a round of applause for that as well. So as we wrap things up here today, we're going to get to our time of giving. I'm going to say a word of prayer, but I also want to encourage any couples that are here. This is a good time for you to talk and really ask each other what the Lord is asking you to do in this moment. Lord, thank you so much for every single one of the donors that are here. Lord, I just ask that you bless this day. Lord, I ask that you bless each of one of these donors. I know that some of them have had extremely successful years and have capacity to give big today. And Lord, I just thank you so much for every single donation that you're putting on the hearts of the guests that are here today. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. So some things I wanted to share with you as you're looking at this form and filling it out. I wanted to share that their goal for fundraising for this event, to keep the operations of the things that they've done last year and the things that they're working to grow into this year, is $300,000. They've already had about $35,000 in donations that have come in from generous donors, which is really exciting, but a good start to their goal. Some of the things that they're looking to do this year is to expand their hours so that they can be open on Tuesday evening for women that have to work during the day and can't come until later hours. I think that's so exceptional because I know that's my daughter's biggest struggle. She's always working, right? The SHARE program right now is in 40 schools and they have 11 staff. But 40 schools in the area is nothing compared to what the opportunity is. And the benefit of them being in schools is helping girls and boys to value their bodies, to not give pieces of themselves away, right? To learn about their reproductive health. The lessons there are invaluable because those educational moments will help them never get to that unplanned pregnancy. So it will help reduce those 3,500 abortions that are happening every year. The men's ministry program, I think, is going to be the catalyst to helping men be more supportive for women in their decisions for choosing life. And then, of course, the abortion recovery program is continuing to grow. And I talked with the girls about the program and the services that they offer, and one of the most profound moments for me was going to an abortion recovery weekend. It was absolutely incredible just to be able to talk through the decisions that I made and why, and to just truly be able to forgive myself. All of the people that are working in the pregnancy center have some type of a story that's brought them to this place. And maybe the Lord is pecking at you because he wants you to take a piece in helping to make abortion unthinkable in Oakland County as well.
We have a way that we can grow this ministry into something special. We can't do that on a dime. We can't do it on a quarter. But if you want to step up and help that, our share program, just so you know, this year increased 35% in terms of what our costs are. So that, it doesn't sound like much, but that's $15,000 that we didn't have last year that we need to have this year. So if you have that number and you think that's something that's a blessing that you could give for us, share program, time to step up, time to say, I can do that. God has many different ways to contribute. Financially is one. And I also just want to encourage, if you've ever thought of volunteering, there's so many ways that you can volunteer and be part of our ministry. Walking in, you could be on our prayer team. Please sign up for our prayer team on the back. There's different ways that you can help support beyond financial, but today is really about financial giving. So we thank you for all being here. And if you are at a church that doesn't have a liaison, that's a person that might corral other people. Reach out, because we would love to have different churches be represented with somebody that loves the pro-life message. I encourage you too, we love one-time donations, but would you consider joining us monthly as well? And it's very easy to do on our brand new website, friends.crossroadscarecenter.org. I also just want to say thank you to Pam for her message tonight. Let's give her a round of applause.